Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tech Women Power Breakfast. My name is Shannon Herman, and I sit on the committee of this breakfast, but I also co-chair the program initiative for Tech Women, Tech Girls for the High Tech Alliance. And I'm happy to virtually see you all today. I'm going to share my screen and go through a few slides, and then I'll introduce our speaker. All right, as I mentioned, here I am, Shannon Herman. Please feel free to connect with me if we're not already connected on LinkedIn. The Tech Women Power Breakfast is a sponsor-driven event, and we're very appreciative of those who take the time and spend the money to sponsor our events. What are some benefits of sponsorship? We look to the community to help sponsor these events, and we give them the opportunity to speak at the event. We include their company name on all press releases prior to the event. And we also highlight your company's commitment to support women and girls in technology, which I think is a really key focus. This month, we do have a sponsor, and we're very lucky to have Rise Private Wealth Management. And I'm going to invite Katie Geary, who's a committee member as well, to speak a little bit about Rise. Katie?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Shannon, for the introduction. Again, my name is Katie Geary. I'm a financial advisor at Rise Private Wealth Management, and we are super pleased to be able to sponsor these amazing events and been super happy with how we've been able to continue virtually and meeting everyone. A little bit about what we do. We specialize in retirement planning and asset management, which is just a really fancy way of saying we help people feel more in control of their financial futures. During COVID and everything going on, we've seen a lot of people be furloughed or not have a strong job security or feel confident in what they're doing. So we're always happy to help and offer a free consultation to anyone who might need it. We really always love meeting new people. So some of the ways we're doing that is virtually. And we have two upcoming events that I wanted to share with you all. The first is actually on August 13th, and it's a food preservation event. So it's all about canning, because a lot of people have been getting into gardening, and you want to harvest those and make them last through the winter. So that's on August 13th from 7 to 8 p.m. And then the next is on August 27th at 6:30. And we're having a guest speaker who's the founder of the Born to Run Foundation, and her name's Noelle Lambert. And she lost her leg, and she was a D1 athlete, and she lost her leg, but then continued to play and was able to come back from that. So it's just a little lesson on resilience and hearing her story. So I wanted to share that with you as well. On the slides, my email, if you'd like to attend, you can just shoot me an email, or if you think that would be applicable to any friends or family or colleagues, please feel free to share that. Again, that's my email, and I'll be at one of the tables after named Rise if anyone has any questions. Thanks again.
Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. Now, I'm very happy to introduce our speaker for today's event, Janine Charlton. This is quite the slide. Janine shared this with me, and I was so impressed. But I wanted to put out a few highlights that I noticed from her background. She is currently the Senior Vice President of Chief Technology and Digital Officer at Merchants Fleet. Most recently named one of the top 50 most powerful women in tech by the National Diversity Council. Her leadership at Merchants focused on positioning the company for technology advancements while creating culture celebrating innovation and collaboration. Janine joins us today to speak about mentorship and how we're going to support the next generation of tech women. Janine, thank you very much for joining us. And here you go. Oh, Janine, your mic is off.
Okay, can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we hear you just fine. Thank you, Janine.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Shannon, for those kind words and that introduction, and good morning to everybody that's joined here. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about a topic that I have just extreme passion about. And I hope We do as well, so let's get started. Couple of opening remarks. I think it's, you really have to kind of appreciate all of the headlines, I think, that are out there in the tech community today about strategies and statistics for bringing more women into leadership. And I think it's really critical to understand that having mentors is really a critical component to that. I know for me personally, having mentors has greatly impacted the trajectory of my career in technology. And there was really never any doubt that I was going to have extreme passion about this and a willingness to serve as a mentor, given all of the terrific mentors that I've had over the span of my career. I do actively mentor today, both formally and informally, and have done that across a number of industries for over 20 years. I think those that offer mentor really help advance the future of an individual while also enriching their own professional experience. Want to be a mentor? Well, let's talk about some specifics as to what that looks like, why it matters, and some practical tips for a successful experience.
Hi, Janine.
Yes.
I have a little bit of audio issue, and I wonder if there's anything covering your microphone or speakers, any papers or anything like that.
I can try to turn the volume up.
Maybe turn the volume down. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that any better, Josh?
Might be. Let's just give it a shot.
Okay. Apologize for that. So, why does this matter in the industry? I think soft skills are critically important. And women do lead with empathy, right? They nurture, they listen, and that can make for better leaders. Also, one thing to be mindful of is that women are really afraid to fail. We're afraid to be wrong, and we worry about what other people think. A couple of apologies for that. A couple of key statistics here that I think are really worth mentioning that I wanted to share with you this morning. There was a poll done in 2017 that reported 50% of women said that they had experienced gender discrimination at work, while only 19% of men had said the same. Not surprising, right? The numbers were even higher for women with postgraduate degrees working in computer jobs or in male-dominated workplaces. In organizations where 50% or more senior leadership positions are held by women, they're more likely to offer equal pay, and female employees are more likely to stay with the company longer than a year. And they also have higher job satisfaction, and they feel that their company is actually trustworthy. And finally, women still feel less enthusiastic about their senior leadership prospects than men. The report found that 50% of men said that they felt it was likely that they would get promoted to executive management in their company, while only 25% of the women said the same. This is really unfortunate, and hopefully this is something that will change on a go-forward basis. They really noted here that they felt a lack of support, self-confidence, and mentorship. I know for me personally, I think I've been very fortunate in that I've had great mentors very early on in my career, and mostly men. And I think that was attributed to me being a female in technology, and I started my career in the automotive industry, which was typically a very male-dominated industry. So why does this matter to you as an individual? First, I think it really holds you accountable for your goals. It helps to establish and track your progress against your goals. It really aids in problem solving. And you learn and you gain more when you're uncomfortable, right? Think about the last time that you were put into a situation where you felt uncomfortable. I know for me personally, when I'm faced with those situations, there's a lot of angst and nervousness kind of going into that situation, but coming out of it, I feel that there's such a learning that had taken place as a result of it. Really then just making it all worthwhile. So to give some context to this, right, I'd like to talk a little bit about why mentorship matters and give you a personal example that I experienced. So a couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with Brendan Keegan, who is now my boss and the CEO for Merchants Fleet. But at the time, I was working for another company and had hired Brendan, who at the time held a company where he did leadership and consulting for various companies. And I had brought Brendan in to do some executive coaching with myself, as well as with my leadership team. So one of the topics that I wanted to talk to Brendan about was seeking some advice on securing a board position. It was something that I had been thinking about for quite some time and had finally decided to put some actions in place in order to really prepare myself for securing a board position. So I had decided to invest in myself, and I enrolled in a course at Harvard, and it's about women serving on corporate boards. So I thought, okay, this is really a great next step. I had enrolled in the course and really wanted to seek some advice from Brendan because he himself had served on several boards about, you know, what else I could do. So he really gave me some great tips in terms of, you know, are you using your network? Are you reaching out to executive recruiters? Are you putting yourself in a situation where, you know, there's others that can have influence on recommending you for a board? So I took copious notes and really thanked him for the advice. And then about a week later, I got a call from Brendan that said, hey, would you be interested in interviewing for Merchants Board? He himself had served on the board and had gone back and had spoken to the owners of the company and had recommended me as a candidate. So long story short, I actually interviewed for Merchants Board and did secure the board position, which was really kind of cool. So my message here is, you know, mentorship matters. Brendan served as a mentor, and it's just amazing what can happen when you put yourself in a situation, I think, to be a little bit vulnerable about asking for things that you want, which I know at times, at least for me, and I think a lot of women feel this way, is that it can be really uncomfortable, to kind of my earlier point, but I think in the end, it really served me well. So let's talk next about what mentorship looks like, right? So when you look at the formal definition here, it's really about an experienced and a trusted advisor. The role of a mentor, I think, is to serve as a role model, as a performer, a teacher, an advocate, a communicator, and an advisor. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide. And the role of a mentee really is about serving as a worker, a student, a doer, and a communicator. So let's talk a little bit about each of these, right? Here I've got 6 traits that I think make for a great mentor. A role model, right? You really want somebody that's a high performer. They come with a tremendous amount of experience. They're very well respected, and they really walk the talk. A performer, really, they get the results, right? They set the bar. They define success. They're extremely accountable to themselves and to others, and they really perform on a day in and day out basis. A teacher, they're competent, they're knowledgeable, they help facilitate learning, they really challenge the student, they're adaptable, they're flexible, and they're really accessible. An advocate helps to educate and to inform, they really represent others well, they're passionate yet poised, and they really serve to advance others' causes. A great communicator, somebody that's an active listener. They can kind of listen between the lines, most likely have very high EQ. They really care, and they have inquiry and advocacy. And then an advisor, right? Really focused on a big picture perspective. comes with a tremendous amount of experience, and has the best interest of others in mind. So let's talk about some traits of an engaged mentee, right? From a worker perspective, somebody that works really hard, doing your job, really focused on maximizing your potential, no excuses, and be extremely accountable to yourself. From a student perspective, be willing to learn, right? Be open to change, really seeking new ideas, focused on always improving, and really be prepared and come with an open mind to be coachable. A doer helps to set priorities, really creates opportunities, solves challenges, implements actions and ideas, and is really prepared for the sessions. From a communicator perspective, very similar to a mentor, right? Be a good active listener. Really be open to receiving feedback. Listen for the lesson. Be curious and ask a lot of questions. And really get good at articulating the challenges. So what does mentorship look like? 2 examples that I thought I would share with you today is one from a merchant's perspective, and then 2 from an external perspective through an organization called Menteum. So here at Merchants, we launched a mentorship program about 2 years ago where we seek out volunteers from across the company that are really interested in mentoring. So you volunteer your time and you get paired up with those that are interested in being mentored. And it's a pairing of those individuals for a year-long relationship. And your commitment is that you meet on a monthly basis, typically for about an hour. And it's really up to the mentee to kind of drive those sessions. They're responsible for the scheduling of the sessions, and they're really responsible for coming prepared with the topics that they'd like to discuss. I know for me personally, I've really enjoyed this experience. This is my 2nd year doing it here at Merchants, and I know that I too have learned a tremendous amount from that engagement and from that experience. And then there's Menteum. Menteum is an organization that really focuses on emerging female leaders, and they actually go into respective companies. So your company would actually sponsor you to be a participant in this Menteum program. There is a fee to be a mentee in the program. Those that mentor actually volunteer their time. And so you get paired with somebody from another company, typically from another industry. It too is a year-long relationship, and your commitment is to meet on a monthly basis as well. I had the privilege of going through this as a mentee about 20 years ago and have served as a mentor ever since. It's just been a tremendous experience. At times, you get paired with somebody that lives kind of in your general proximity, so you have an opportunity to meet on a face-to-face basis. But more likely, you're going to get paired with somebody that lives in a different state and sometimes even in a different country. But it's just a wonderful organization. And I would encourage you to kind of explore that if your company is in a situation where they could actually sponsor you to be a participant in that particular program. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about some tips for a really great, successful experience. So for mentors, mentoring is not managing, right? A good mentor listens carefully and is there to share their experiences and offer professional suggestions. Really not to direct or to solve someone's problems, really just there to listen and ask some really good questions. You need to be committed to building trust. Make it clear to your mentee that they're there to be in a safe environment, and really what they share with you is meant to be kept strictly confidential. Really make sure that you're showing genuine interest in their questions and their concerns. I think this level of trust in a relationship, like any relationship, takes time to build, so really be patient. Listen and be prepared, and let the mentee lead the way. Ask what their goals are and what they would like to work on, and really encourage them to come prepared with specific questions and empower them to work on the goals that they've identified. Really listen carefully to what your mentee is bringing to you, and you will likely learn some things along the way. I know I certainly have. Be willing and offer constructive feedback in a really honest and sincere way. When a mentee asks you a question about how they handled the situation, I think it's really important to name their strengths and their weaknesses and how a different approach potentially could yield a different result, right? I think it's just kind of be mindful of that and really make sure that you're being respectful in your communication. But remember, right, that it's ultimately the mentee's responsibility to absorb and decide whether or not to act on your feedback. So don't take it personal if they don't act on your feedback. Just leave it to them and kind of plant that seed. And then really focus on teaching through specific examples that you could offer up to your mentee. And then finally, I would say, be extremely mindful of your mentee's culture, their differences, and really their overall life experiences. So, some tips for a successful experience for the mentees. Be curious and open to change. Respect your mentor's time by coming prepared. Have the questions or topics of what you want to cover when you meet. I think that really makes for a great experience kind of going into the session. Be really open to hearing and absorbing feedback and really be coachable. Commit to building trust and remember that relationships take time. Really be clear about communicating your goals and your needs. And I would say really take the time to really write those down so that you're clear on that. And at the end of your experience, if you're in a more formal kind of relationship with your mentor, you can kind of go back and say, okay, did I meet the goals that I had set out to? Did I end up adjusting my goals just because of the nature of how the relationship unfolded? And again, really be accountable, right? Focus on implementing ideas, setting your priorities, and doing your homework. So my challenge to you would be, one, be comfortable with who you are and really what you bring to the table. Have the courage and the conviction to broaden your horizons. Know what's happening around you, right? Be a continuous learner. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to read and really be open to reading about a number of different topics, not just that of your specific industry. And be mindful of paying it forward, right? I think this one is critically important. And understand that it's okay not to know everything, right? I think as women, we feel that we have to know everything before we're in a situation to kind of speak up or be confident on a particular topic in a professional setting. And then finally, right, know what you're good at. Really, that's your calling card. So in closing, I would say, are you ready to build the future of women, right? If you have a passion for helping others, a willingness to take the time to offer your insights, the enthusiasm for your profession, I think being a mentor could really be a great fit for you. In order to effectively tackle the challenge of developing more women into leaders, we need both men and women to take on this really important role. Fortunately, there are many ways to jump into being a mentor. If your company already has a mentorship program, you can volunteer to be a part of. If not, then maybe you can informally kind of get something started within your respective organization. And then there's also formal organizations like Menteum that I spoke about earlier, and many others that are out there. It's a challenging but rewarding road out there, and I encourage you to join me in mentoring the next generation of women in technology. So thank you very much, and now I'd like to open it up for some questions.
You're muted right now.
Oh, well, good. I appreciate that, Janine, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. One thing I noted was the concept of having a mentor later in your career. I feel like a lot of people get stuck on the concept that like mentor mentee is more junior portion of a career. And I thought that it was really interesting to hear that it's worked for you so recently when you are experienced and at more of a senior level. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think that's really important, right? And I don't know that, I know for me personally, I think it's something that I have always sought out because I think, you know, we're always learning. And I think if you don't have somebody that you can kind of bounce ideas off of, right? I think we all need mentorship, regardless of where you're at in your journey. So.
Excellent. And as Josh put in the chat, if anyone would like to ask a question, there's a Q&A tab to the right of your screen. And I can just read those off, anything that might come up. So I'll take a look and we'll go from there. All right. First one is, do you have any book recommendations for personal development for a mentee/mentor relationship?
Any book recommendations? So I've read a lot of books lately, but none most recently around kind of mentees. I think for me, it's more about leadership, and there's just a lot of great, I think, books out there around leadership. So I'm trying to think if there's any that come to top of mind. I can't think of any, Shannon, specifically around, mentorship, to be honest with you. So drawing a blank on that one.
That's okay. If you think of anything, we can always share it out.
Okay.
How do you see the difference between a mentor and a career coach?
Mentor and a career coach. I think actually they could be quite similar, to be honest with you. I've personally never worked with a career coach. I've always had just great mentors, and I kind of looked at them very similar, to be honest with you. I've got a very good friend of mine that's currently working with a career coach, and she really relies on that person, I think, for advice similar to what you would do for a mentor as well. So.
Excellent. It looks like Kimberly's asking if we could specifically be able to share 2 slides, the role of the mentor and the mentee. Is that something you'd be open to sharing with us?
I'm very happy to share all of my slides, actually.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And one question that's not in the chat, but it's something that I thought of is, how do you suggest dealing with it when there's a poor match between a mentor and a mentee in some of these more formalized programs?
So I think if it's a poor match, then you need to be really open and honest about it, right? Because I think the amount of time that gets invested by both the mentor and the mentee is really a commitment. And I've personally had experiences where, having served in a mentor role, that I didn't think that the mentee was a good match. I found myself in a situation where the individual wasn't coming prepared, they weren't that engaged. And so I ended the relationship as a result of it. So I would say, give it some time, right? I think it goes back to, are you pouring everything into it that you can? Have you given it enough time? And if you feel like you have and it's still not working, then I think it's okay to just call it.
And then one other question I had that's not in the chat, but apparently I'm inquisitive today. For a non-formalized program, when you're approaching someone that you know maybe through networking or through professional development, and you'd like to talk to them about mentorship. Do you have any suggestions on how to frame that?
So I've personally experienced that as well, right? I think if it's somebody that you have an already established relationship with, I think it's an easier conversation to have, right? Versus somebody that you really don't know, but maybe you've kind of admired from afar, and to kind of spring into that type of a conversation to say, hey, would you be interested in mentoring? Probably could be a little awkward and may kind of catch that person off guard. So I think my advice would be it's probably an easier thing to do with individuals that you know. And I think just kind of being really open with that individual, saying that you respect them, right? You think that they could really offer some great advice from a career coaching point of view, and would they be interested in, meeting? Maybe it's just, hey, could we meet and have a cup of coffee occasionally? Or if I have a question about something, would you be open to, engaging and sharing some of your time? And my personal experience is when I've been approached by individuals who have asked me to informally mentor, I've always said yes. And I think it's one of those things where I go back to one of my points about just, if you invest time in people, that's a very gratifying experience to have as an individual. And I think there's a lot that I've ended up learning just as a result of those conversations that I've had with individuals.
Excellent. You kind of answered the next question that someone posted in a chat of how do you handle a junior person in your organization asking you to be their mentor?
Yeah. I've always said yes, but I think it goes back to, because I had such incredible role models very early on in my career, that I always knew that I needed to give that back as well, right? Knowing the benefit that I received and how much I appreciated it. And if I could put myself in a situation where I could do that same thing for somebody else, then why wouldn't you do it? It's just a really gratifying and rewarding experience. And you get to know other individuals that you may not have had an opportunity to get to know as well, which I think is a really great thing also.
Excellent. Well, that looks like it wraps for the questions, unless anyone has anything final to throw in the chat. But Janine, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know that everyone is kind of commenting and liking the comment of thank you for a wonderful presentation. I think many people appreciate your take on mentorship, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody, and I wish everybody well. Be safe and be well. Yes.
And we do have some time for networking. And Janine, are you able to stick around for a little bit for questions? Fantastic. Yeah. So that's going to be table 1. If anyone has any questions. And I know Katie is also at a table that is labeled Rise Wealth Management, if anyone has any questions for our sponsor. And I will wrap us up here with the final slide. So thank you all for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you doing some networking for the next 15, 20 minutes or so.
Thank you, Shannon.